Welcome to the video. Today we'll explore a practical framework for young adults deciding between chasing high yields and building smarter spending habits. First, we'll set the stage with why this topic matters. Then, we'll look at how to safely grow a lump sum using high-yield accounts. Next, we'll dig into the controversial but crucial truth that your spending habits are your first and most important investment. Finally, we'll wrap with an action plan, quizzes, and a quick summary you can follow right away. Here's our agenda. We will begin with context and why this decision matters. Then we will cover high-yield accounts and how they can protect your purchasing power. After that, we will shift to spending discipline, the desire log method, and a practical 90-day plan. We will then cover risks, take 2 short quizzes, and close with key takeaways and next steps. Inflation reduces your purchasing power over time, so choosing where to park your first few $1,000s can create a meaningful cushion. At the same time, habits around spending will determine how fast you grow your net worth. Therefore, we want a dual approach. Store value safely for growth, while building discipline to prevent leaks in your budget. This content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Regulations, tax treatment, and deposit protections vary by country and institution. Always evaluate your personal situation and consider consulting a licensed professional before making financial decisions. This section explains how high-yield accounts work for an initial lump sum. If your local market offers roughly 9.7% and inflation is about 4%, your real return is approximately 5.7% before taxes. First, ask whether you'll need the cash within the next 3 to 6 months. If yes, prioritize liquidity through a high-yield savings or short-term liquid vehicle. If no, check whether you already have an emergency fund. If you do not, build 3 to 6 months of expenses in a liquid account before locking funds. If you do, you can consider a term deposit or certificate of deposit with the best insured rate. Always compare yields after tax and relative to inflation. Align the term length with your access needs to avoid penalties. Automate contributions and review your options at maturity. Here is a practical 90-day plan. In weeks 1 and 2, calculate 3 to 6 months of expenses to set your emergency fund target and open a high-yield insured account for it. In weeks 2 and 3, if you still have surplus cash, compare certificates of deposit or term deposits and match the term to your access needs. In weeks 2 through 4, begin a daily desire log to capture discretionary wants. In weeks 3 and 4, automate transfers from your paycheck to the emergency fund and then to the term deposit if appropriate. In weeks 5 through 12, review the desire log at 30 and 60 days and rate the satisfaction of any purchases. Finally, at week 12, reassess the allocation and adjust based on your needs and current rates. The desire log is a simple behavior training tool. Write down every discretionary want, like a $200 pair of boots. Wait 30 days before purchasing to introduce a deliberate cooling period. If you buy, revisit the item after 1 month and again after 6 months. Record whether it actually improved your daily life. Categorize items such as fashion, technology, food, or experiences, and score satisfaction from 1 to 5. This process teaches delayed gratification, reduces impulse leakage, and reveals what truly sustains happiness versus what fades quickly. Quiz time. The question is, which matters most for long-term wealth at the start? Option A is chasing an extra 1% yield at all costs. Option B is consistent budgeting and spending discipline. Option C is putting every dollar in the longest certificate of deposit available. Option D is ignoring inflation because rates are high. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is consistent budgeting and spending discipline. While a higher rate can help, habits drive the majority of long-term outcomes because they compound continuously through controlled spending and regular saving. Here is a comparison. High-yield accounts protect purchasing power against inflation and provide predictable, low-risk returns, though early withdrawals can trigger penalties and taxes may apply. These accounts work best alongside a budget. Spending smarts, on the other hand, reduce leaks and raise your savings rate. They build delayed gratification, reduce impulse purchases, and free up cash for goals and investing. Combined, spending discipline multiplies the value of any yield you earn. This decision flowchart starts by asking whether you will need the money within 3 to 6 months. If yes, you prioritize a high-yield liquid account for accessibility. If no, It next checks whether you have an emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of expenses. If not, you build that first. If you do have the emergency fund and no near-term need, the chart guides you to compare insured term deposits or certificates of deposit by after-tax and after-inflation yields, factoring in penalties for early withdrawal. It also reminds you to look for specialized, local, or tax-advantaged accounts. Finally, it ends with a review at maturity to reassess prevailing rates and your goals. This table illustrates approximate one-year outcomes. With a $4,000 starting amount at 9.7%, nominal interest is about $388, with an approximate real rate of 5.7% before tax. At 5%, nominal interest is about $200, with a real rate near 1% before tax. At 2%, nominal interest is around $80, which is a negative real rate when inflation is 4%. Actual results depend on compounding frequency, taxes, and timing. Be aware of guardrails and risks. Early withdrawal penalties can erode returns, so understand the rules before committing to a term. Confirm deposit insurance limits for each account and institution. Compare after-tax returns and leverage tax-advantaged options if available. Identify whether the rate is fixed or variable and plan for reinvestment at maturity. Real returns depend on future inflation. Finally, even strong rates cannot overcome behavioral leakage if spending is undisciplined. Quiz number 2. If you might need your lump sum within 3 to 6 months, what is the best move? Option A is to lock the full amount in a 2-year certificate of deposit. Option B is to keep an emergency buffer liquid and only lock true surplus. Option C is to put it all in a volatile stock. Option D is to ignore budgeting until rates fall. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is to keep an emergency buffer liquid and only lock true surplus. Liquidity comes first when there is a near-term need. Once you have adequate access to cash, you can optimize yield with the remaining funds. These are the core takeaways. Use a dual approach that balances liquidity with growth. Focus on real, after-tax returns. Treat spending discipline as your first investment. Use the desire log to build delayed gratification. Automate contributions and review at maturity. Finally, know penalties, insurance limits, and tax rules. Here are your next steps. Today, determine your emergency fund target and open a high-yield account. This week, start the desire log and set 2 to 3 spending rules. This month, compare insured term deposits or certificates of deposit and automate transfers. In 90 days, review satisfaction scores and reallocate at maturity based on your results. Thanks for watching. If this was helpful, please like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more practical money content. In the comments, share what you discovered from your desire log and how it changed your spending. See you in the next video.